Hi everyone, I hope you're well. I'm going to do something a bit different today. Going to talk about how on earth did I learn about music. I'm far from being musically competent, but I just have this feeling that I have when I play music, and that's kind of just inspired me to I don't know, I went down a rabbit hole and I'm still digging down that hole. But yeah, this should hopefully be something interesting, I'm hoping. If not, then that's fine. You're more than happy to, take some comments and criticism and stuff. But yeah, I'm going to run through today a track that I am obsessed with. And yeah, kind of how I got started with music is I would sit and listen to game soundtracks and movie soundtracks and be like, oh my God, I love this part so much. How on earth was that made? It's like Duel of the Fates, the lovely staccato that they have in that kind of, all the ostinatos and stuff into that build-up. I could just even, probably 20 years later, that's terrifying by the way, but just sit and listen to that same thing on repeat over and over and over again, honestly. And I think there's just something, fantastic about certain, musical lines and, how they make you feel, right? There's someone who couldn't really... I still to this day struggle expressing myself, I'll be honest. But I think the reason I'm a lot better at it is, music was kind of something that helped me understand it. So yeah, I ended up reverse engineering some music when I was much, much, much older, 16 or so. And yeah, I just never stopped really. So most of what I've learned is from listening and analysing and reverse engineering, and I'm never going to pretend to be a musical theory person. I'm not. It fascinates me, but my brain doesn't get it. I get the fundamentals and how things piece together and the maths of it all. But yeah, and that has just driven me. So I'm going to play a piece of a song. I'm not going to play the original song because copyright and all that, but I'm going to play part of a song. Let's see if I've got half of my desktop. I'm sure I've got... There we go, it's better. I've got a piece here from the Fire Emblem Three Houses game. I think it came out in 2017. I hated this game when it came out. I thought, oh my God, this is rubbish. I don't get the hype. And then about 3 years later, I revisited it and went, God, this game's fantastic. And the soundtrack makes the game much better than it is. Apologies to any of you people who might actually be obsessed with this game, but the way it's pieced together, and again, this is from a game and soundtrack world, is you have two different layers of sounds overlaid. It's the simplest trick in the world, but you have what they call the thunder version and the rain version. And when you dip in and out of a menu track, the menu one comes off. The main battle one goes off. And then when you're in the main battle, this will either come out or it'll just be this track playing. Super, super basic crossfading stuff. But actually, if you sit and listen to the two pieces together, really, really fascinating. So I'm going to try and do... My environment is awful, so this is not going to look great, but let's see if that works. Yeah, that's not what I expected, but that's fine. Let me just ignore that dehumidifier thing. It's fine. But this track is built on... Sorry, I don't know if I've got a Celeste or Vibes or whatever they are. Piano. Bring that out of touch. Christ. So, this track, it's all in A minor / C major. And it's super, 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 super basic in terms of how it's constructed, but it just has this wonderful feel. So the whole driver for it is this. And it's such a beautiful piece of music. And then I've played it so many times and gone, oh, that's really interesting. Then how can you layer? And so me being the way I am, and let me just reset my camera so you don't just get this view of the keys. That's not very good, is it? Apologies. So, me being the way I am, I then went, hey, what if I just listened to every single piece of instrumentation in that song and mapped it and just listen to it. It's such a beautiful piece of music. I've not done the full thing, but this is kind of how I learn music, just sitting, analysing it and deconstructing it. This might jump in a little bit. Now, all of that, I promise you, is actual sequenced and played in. So I've either sat and played that in meticulously, or I've listened to it and then wrote it in for the parts that are a bit complicated. And just technology is phenomenally good. It really is. So yeah, these are the two backing tracks that I'd use to kind of sync it, listen to it. But there's just something about that section here. Missing a bit as well. And it's just so majestic sounding, isn't it? Let me just check the time, it's still good. So I'm going to break that down just a touch and give you a... Sorry, I'm struggling a bit with my setup. There we go. So yeah, let me just go into a little bit of the inner workings of that. Because the entire song revolves around that really melodic piece, and I think Fire Emblem, that specific game, it's such a... I honestly think it's so good in terms of like how the soundtrack is written, because the entire thing's thematic, and it matches it throughout the entire thing. You've got themes of characters that echo through like the entire game, themes of all sorts of different things. And yeah, there's such a simple little... It's just such a nice little... I mean, if you do it really slow... Oops. It's got this like really nostalgic thing, and then you put the left hand with it. It's just like musically fascinates me. I could sit and try and tell you what that is. I'm not going to, because I'm not a music theory expert. But yeah, like I then listen to how the melody is constructed. So you keep that chord going. Sorry, it goes back up. Oops, sorry. And then it repeats. Oops. And it's just, yeah, it's such a beautiful, it's just such a lovely piece of music. And yeah, I heard it and I was like, right, I'm going to make my own version of it. Not because I want to do I mean, there's nothing wrong with the original version, absolutely not. But what's really cool with game soundtrack composers is we make like millions of different arrangements. That's my jam. I can latch onto a melody and make about 20 variations of it. Anyone who has seen any of my music stuff, it's the reason I don't release anything, because they're constantly rearranging. But yeah, so the way that's then constructed, so if I go into the actual project, bear with. So like, if I take the percussion away, you've got melodic elements. There's a harp somewhere. Yeah. Very mistimed, but that's fine. I probably did that purposely to try and make it more interesting, who knows. You then put strings with it. So this is like the... I'll just do the harmony bits. I'll zoom that in a bit as well, sorry. Oops. There we are. Like that, it's saying. So yeah, there's all these different... It's so messy, apologies. I'll tell you what I can do. I can hide all the inactive tracks. There we go. Looks a bit tidier. So yeah, like, that's all the percussion stuff up there, which you can't see. But yeah, you've got that nice little melody. This is a bit lazy down here. Get some basses in. Sorry, the loop ended, but that's okay. It's just so good. And you know what? This is going to sound really awful, but I've not even got started with it. That's like, there's a million and one other like sub things going on with that, but I cannot describe to you how it feels to be able to have or hear something in your head and then be able to like make it come to life. And software these days is so good. I'd obviously prefer to be in a room with an orchestra, listen to that. I'd probably like be, it sounds really awful, but I'd just be sat there having a meltdown probably. But it's just such a phenomenal piece. And then what makes it even cooler is there's then, like I said, the 4 different arrangements of it. They've stripped back some of the instrumentation, and that is just heaven for me. I can sit and make my own arrangements and all sorts, and just as a fun little thing, let's put the percussion and the brass and everything else back in. Sorry, it's back in here. Bit of mixing required. And then one day when I was sat bored, I was like, you know what, let's play some drums into it. So I'm pretty sure somewhere in here, yep, I mocked up some drums as well. It's not going to work because I've not done any build-ups or anything, but this is the joy of what you can do, right? The rhythms don't work, yeah, but I was just like, stuff it and jump in. And I think, you know, that was a fun idea, but it doesn't really work. But then I've got like all sorts of weird and wonderful types of... Oops, turn my piano off. All this really wonderful percussion. And down the rabbit hole you go, you know. But let me go back. So yeah, that is the crux of how I learn everything musical. Or had, you know. I've obviously... My brain started shortcutting some things together. My biggest piece of advice, if you do struggle with music theory, there's 2 ways of thinking of music. Individual elements, all pieced together to a wall of sound. That's kind of the Western ideal. Or you think of everything in blocks. So that entire song is, if you break down a minor chord, and then was creative with how you mapped the notes across your keyboard. If you, as a composer, it's hard because I played guitar and piano first before, guitar and bass before I played piano. With guitar, you tend to think more, depends if you're a rhythm guitarist or lead guitarist, I suppose. I would kind of lead chord first, and then you can kind of, if you're playing a chord and you want to make it melodic, well, you can just arpeggiate some of the notes. Exact same thing happens on piano, but you can do a lot more creative things on a piano. It's a lot easier to visualize. So if you do struggle with how on earth do you dissect this really complex piece of music, well, actually, by the time you figure out what the bass notes are, that gives you a good root note to pivot everything else off. So, if you've got just change that over there quick. So if you've got an A down there into a D, E, even if you don't know a single thing about music theory, well, if it's an A in the lower end, or if you just stack something else on top, okay, doesn't sound bad. Or if you stacked a chord on instead, let's try a major. Doesn't quite work. We want to get a minor one. All of a sudden, you've got the song. It can be so beautifully simple, and then you just build on it. But if you look at the entire thing as a piece and go, Christ, that's complex, like listen to the Duel of the Fates, or I don't know, like a Final Fantasy VIII, what's it called? The opening song, Sliberi Fertalia or something, and it's like, you listen to it and go, Christ, there's so much stuff going on. But actually, you just don't focus on the grandiosity of it. Think of all the little elements, because that's all an orchestra is, If you played 2 A minor chords and could play every single version of A minor all at once, I can't do that. I'm not going to try and do that. At every single point along your keyboard. That's just how an orchestra works, but they do it in a really creative and interesting way where all the notes and the voices kind of lead you in a particular way with inversions and things like that. And it's really can be beautifully simple. So anyway, bit of a waffly, interesting, divergent session today. But I thought I'd give people a little bit of an overview of how I got into music and some of the things I'm looking at the moment. And if you'd like to see more stuff like this, really ad hoc or something really specific, do let me know. Obviously, I love doing stuff like this. So have a lovely day wherever you are. See you later.